delighted to be holding the conversation with Hugh Crago, paying tribute to Maureen Crago, his life and work partner, who sadly passed away on the 15th of August 2024. Hugh, alongside Maureen, served as editors-in-chief of our journal, the Australian New Zealand Journal of Family Therapy, and for the period of 12 years, so the second longest serving editors-in-chief in the Australian family therapy history. Maureen was the most committed and passionate woman, fellow therapist, and highly dedicated editor-in-chief, who we are profoundly grateful for her invaluable support, leading alongside Hugh the Australian family therapy movement. I'm very privileged and honored for the opportunity to have a conversation with Hugh about Maureen, honoring her memory and her valuable contribution to our journal and our field in general in Australia. I am aware that Hugh is unwell as well. He's been very gracious to actually join me and be able to have just hold a small conversation about Maureen, because we wanted to honor her during the conference as well, a 2025 conference. Hugh, perhaps you can tell us who Maureen was, the person, and then you can tell us a bit how that ended, how that moved into her passion and her contribution in the family therapy field in Australia, and joining in as editor-in-chief with you for 12 years.
Thanks, Daisy. And I really appreciate this opportunity to talk a bit about Maureen, or to talk at greater length about Maureen than would have been possible under the previous idea of 2 minutes per person. So it's nice to have a bit of extra space, because there is quite a bit one could say about Maureen. Not that she would have probably thought that, but some of the rest of us thought that there was a lot to say about her. So I think Maureen was the kind of person the kind of extraordinary person that frequently goes unnoticed, particularly in public venues or, organizational contexts, in the sense that she just got on with her work and did what she believed needed to be done. She was not an ego-driven person. She did not require her to see her name in lights. She did not require to be referred to all the time or deferred to all the time. She saw herself as doing a job. She had been, before I met her, a teacher, a high school teacher, and like many other young people of her generation, young graduates of her generation, didn't find that particularly satisfying. Retrained as a librarian, and she was, of quite a scholarly bent. She was doing another master's degree when I met her in comparative philology, which is a subject that people now have never heard of, but which comparative study of languages and their origins, actually. So I was quite fascinated. I was very much in awe of that. And I also was interested in languages, although not to the extent that she was. And so that's how we met, in a class together. And then when we went to England, we came back, we had our children. Maureen was very concerned to be a good mother. She did not work full-time while our children were young. So like a lot of women, she had a kind of interrupted, non-linear career path, and did lots of different things, some of them well below the level that she could have, applied for had she been in Australia, but we were in the UK at the time, and there was a degree of discrimination against people of colonial origins. Even then, this is the 1970s. So then, and we did some research together when our children were young, and We were becoming very interested in family therapy ourselves at that time. So for quite a period of time while Max Cornwall was editing the journal, she did for 12 years, I believe. I think that's the same length of time that we did it for. She and I both contributed to the journal, and we reviewed books for the journal, and eventually we became on the panel of assessors for the journal. So we were involved with it, and we knew Max, and we came to care about it greatly. There was a feeling in those days, so I'm talking about the early 80s now, that this was our journal. It was not something that originated in America. It was not something that originated in the UK. And truthfully, it didn't originate in New Zealand either, but they came in, were invited to come in on it, and made a contribution, of course. But there was a feeling of ownership, and we liked the journal because, apart from anything else, it was fun. Now, this is probably not a thing that would go down very well in academic circles, because scholarly journals are supposed to be scholarly and academic and have lots of references and be boring as batshit to read. And that is how you define a good journal, and Max didn't run that kind of journal. Michael White, previous to him, had not run that kind of journal. There was always room for humour, levity, cartoons, jokes about family therapy.
Irreverent.
Yeah. And so we wanted to keep that tradition going when we became editors. But so we'd been very interested in the journal, but how we became editors, I don't want to go into the details of that because I truly don't understand the whole process, even now. But I think it would be fair to say that we were compromise candidates. There were people also interested in editing the journal who would have, I must say, the particular one that I know about would have done an excellent job, just as good as we did, although different. But for various reasons, those people were not seen to be aligned with the right forces or whatever. I don't know. I did never fully understand it. So I think we were nominated because we were uncontentious. And by the same token, we came into it being very little known outside of New South Wales and Queensland. The power base of family therapy, I think it would be reasonably fair to say at that time, and perhaps still, was Melbourne. Mm-hmm. And if you hadn't been trained in family therapy at Bouverie or possibly Williams Road, then who were you? And so that, I think, is what probably some people thought initially. And so we had a credibility problem initially. Somebody said a couple of counsellors from rural New South Wales. That was how we were described. And so there were some hurdles. And so back to Maureen. Maureen wasn't really fazed by any of this. She, as I said, she knew what the job was going to be. She set herself to do it, and she did it. And she was a very organized person, unlike myself. And so that was very good. We had somebody who was organized, and everything could always be found, and her filing system was perfect and up to date, and everything was stored on the computer. This was quite early in the days of, it's before the internet. People still had fax machines at that point. And in fact, one of the things that happened quite early on was that people used to communicate with the editors by fax as well as by phone. And if you remember, fax machines used to have kind of make mip noises. If you phoned the fax number rather than the phone number. So one irate contributor to the journal said, "Your fax machine screamed at me." and it was very put out, as if it was somehow our fault that had happened. So things like that happened. We didn't enjoy the fax machine very much, and I was glad when we said goodbye to it.
So
Sorry,
all
you
these
wanted to say
challenges that you endured, that are so so much easier these days, yet
it
there
is a
was
lot easier.
tenacity and commitment by Maureen.
A lot of things are probably easier these days. And email was still quite early on. So we were communicating in email all the time, trying to learn how to do that without offending people. Because as you know, email and now text messages really lend themselves to all kinds of misinterpretation if people are not careful how they phrase things.
Yes.
At least that's been my experience.
So there were a lot of hurdles, as you said, Hugh, to jump
hurdles
through. Yes, many hurdles. Yet Maureen persevered with her tenacity and commitment and her passion, and she has a huge sense of, as you said, her sense of dedication, extremely dedicated.
Yes. If you put your hand up to do something, you must do it.
Yes.
You can see a former school prefect and school captain and all of those kinds of things there. She took all of that stuff very seriously. And so she did. And that involved long hours of work. It was more than a 9 to 5 day for Maureen, and often she wouldn't finish till early evening, and would sometimes quite often work at the weekends, because there were 4 issues coming out a year. She took that very seriously. There was no way we were going to be able to submit an issue late.
Yes.
So we scrambled hard to get those issues in on time so that the publisher would get them out to the subscribers on time. Looking back, I realized that probably we thought that people cared more about the journal than they actually did. I mean, some people cared a lot about it all the time, but there were a large number of other readers who, it was their professional journal and it came in the mail and they'd sort of have a glance at it and then, probably not look at it again. But, if you're the editor, you have to believe in what you edit. And we really did. So, yes.
And
so it was, you go. No, you go.
I was going to say, one of the things that you captured my attention as well in our chat, that Maureen was very interested in bringing that lens, in Australia, very committed in the community,
Yes.
what was happening here in
Yes.
our context. However, she was also a realist in terms of, and also a collaborative realist, I guess, in terms of ensuring that there was that connection with the international field. So she was always keeping informed. And that was a very important part of it. Do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Yes, I can. I can. I think, in a way, I won't start there. Everybody will say it sounds pessimistic. I think we probably took it, both of us took it very seriously that we were an international journal. We were strictly a binational journal, Australia and New Zealand. We were not saying that we were an international journal of family therapy or a Southern Hemisphere journal of family therapy. But realistically, we received copies of all the major journals and a lot of quite minor ones from the US, from Europe, and from Latin America. As I was saying to you the other day, we had some quite strong connections with several countries in South America. And I guess, so the international dimension of it was important to Maureen. And so she forged relationships with those editors in other countries who had never met us. We didn't go to any conferences with them. We probably could have if we had put up our hands and asked for the airfare and stuff like that, but it was hard to see how we could find the time. But anyway, we had a correspondence relationship with a few other editors, and they contributed columns to the journal when we were editing it, which we were quite proud of. I mean, sometimes they were more interesting than other times, and sometimes it was obvious that the international correspondent was sort of scratching for things to say. Temporarily.
And one of the things you mentioned before, that Maureen was quite interested. So in her passion and what she gathered here about the issues that were relevant within our contexts,
yes,
Australia and New Zealand, that also she would incorporate some of what was said, because she would read from beginning to end every article you said. And that's actually quite a rarity, I will say.
She would read from beginning to end every article in every issue of every exchange journal that she received. Exactly. Obviously, she read numerous times. We both did every article that we published, but she read all the others as well.
Yes.
And so I just found this before you came online. In a little box in volume 26, which is 2005, she quotes this. Carl Whitaker, big name from early family therapy, agrees that Murray Bowen had a great deal of personal power and probably not a little ambivalence about its use. He said to me that he didn't believe in transference, recalls Whitaker, but I told him that 5 minutes after I saw him, I was transferred up to the ears myself, and he became my mother and father, whether he knew it or liked it or not.
That's so cool.
So, now that actually comes from our own journal. I've just realised, not from an overseas one. But she found similar sort of striking little quotes by people with big names that everybody had heard of, that were witty and like amusing and stuff, and tried to work them into our journal. So there was this flavour of voices from other countries.
Beautiful, and I love it. Yes.
As well as voices from Australia, which were obviously important, and New Zealand when we could get them.
Yes, and that was part of her unique sense of that collaborative.
She was collaborative. That is a good word.
Yes.
She was collaborative, not competitive.
Exactly. And she would very much joining in.
She joined in.
And bring the aspects of that and bring it to the current, if there were articles, or she would do an editorial. I believe she would bring some of those articles as well into the flow, a paragraph or two, to try and make sense. And the interesting thing is, these are the kind of things that we are moving towards again. We're reconnecting, we're reliving all that again. So Maureen is coming in our mind, because with the special issues, we're changing, how things are done with the journal, and very much previous articles will come alive again. We'll relive through new themes and special issues. So when I heard that about Maureen, it's just very special, because that's coming back again, that approach.
Good. Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Very good to hear.
Yes. So tell me, what are the key things about her as a person? And perhaps we can end about her legacy as well.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, I suppose one of the things I would have said is that there was a lot of politics involved, and every conference, as you know, the journal board would meet, and we would be part of that. And all sorts of things were going on politically, and sometimes there were quite tense times. But I was wanting to say that Maureen coped with this, I thought, extremely well. She knew when to keep out of things. She was very even-handed in her dealings with whoever she was listening to. She would take seriously and treat with respect. And she was the same with our authors. Sometimes she was not treated with respect by the authors, but mostly I think she came to be greatly respected by them. She offered far more help and specific encouragement and coaching especially to new authors who sort of were, this is the first time they published something, than many editors would have done. And I have published many things in a lot of journals, and I can speak to that. You rarely get the amount of help that she gave.
Yes, and that's a
to our
rarity
authors.
again. Yeah, to be able to coach them,
nurture them. So I think that is a very important thing about her. And no matter how tense things got, she would not lose her cool. She didn't become all anxious like I would. And so it was very good to have her there. And I think a number of people on the journal board came to value her greatly for that reason.
That's lovely. That's lovely. So the very unique person with many qualities that were just so important for the journal, and perhaps a very valuable key member that sees the journal now standing because of her and your contribution, because it's very vital the way that she went about things with the journal and how you contributed and the passion, because as I said, it was 12 years, second longest serving editors. So that's not an easy feat.
No. And I suppose something else came to mind while you were saying that. Yes. I'll mention one other thing, because it was a time in the history of the journal. I don't know how things are now, but it was a time in the history of the journal when subscriber numbers had been slowly going down, a continuing trend downwards. They never got back to the level that they had been in the first 5 or 6 years of the journal. And so there was always a problem with money and financing the journal, and also a sense of, it was difficult for morale, for our morale and for the morale of people who believed in the journal and contributed to it regularly, to feel that somehow we weren't able to pull our weight in comparison with Family Process or something, prestigious journal overseas that everybody was dying to publish in, and which would always have a big subscriber base. So it was not an easy time to be editor, and she, because she was who she was. Sorry, I'm still getting the tenses wrong. I think that she just did what needed to be done at the time, and she retired when she was 70.
Wow.
So she had spent the whole of her 60s, at a time when many people are starting to either retire or think about retiring.
Exactly, traveling and whatever it is, but she gave her heart to
whatever.
The heartbeat.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's her. Yeah, sorry. No, go on.
This massive, right? And having lived with this wonderful woman who, your life partner, and
yes.
I know this is raw still because it was only August when she passed, and she was your life partner, your work partner.
Yes.
Who gave the heartbeat, I guess, in your relationship and also in the journal, and as a result in our family therapy field within Australia, New Zealand, and so such an important person, human. Contributor of our field. And what would you say it's her legacy? What does she leave with her? What do you think? What would be the key things that you feel that she's leaving with her that can be passed on, that we need to leave? And that's one of the reasons, I guess, I wanted to ensure that we are able to have more time to have a chat, so that we are able to see those people that didn't know much about her, as in our discussions, that don't.
That's right. Which will be a lot of people. Yeah. A lot of people watching this interview will not know, will not have known Maureen, will not remember her.
Hence the importance of doing it. Yeah, her importance of doing this and ensuring that people are aware of who she was, because she was fundamentally important to it. So, yeah.
Well, she was fundamentally important to how it was at the time. you know, I can't comment on what it is like now.
Yeah.
But I guess she would have, I think what she would want me to say is that is actually something that I've already said, so I won't labour it, but that she took seriously the fact that we are part of an international collaborative community and that you could have informal, chatty connections with some of those people from other countries with very different ways of doing things in terms of social services and the organisation of mental health services and so on from what we have here. But that's what we were part of. You could have chatty conversations with them, or you could have a sort of formal dialogue with them in which, people from Scandinavia, for example, would introduce new ideas that would resonate with, certain therapists here, and then be tried out. And practices in multifamily therapy that had been trialed in the United Kingdom and before that in the US could also be tried out here. That inspirational things
Yes.
that let people know what was happening in terms of bringing people together. Because one of Maureen's priorities in life, I found, particularly towards the end of her life, she was very preoccupied with bringing people together. And particularly in terms of her family of origin, she was the person, needless to say, in her family of origin who kept contact with everybody, with the aunts and the uncles and the cousins and the people further out in the extended family. She and her brother Keith produced 3 iterations of a lengthy family history. In fact, a final iteration of that is about to come out from Keith alone this time. But Maureen was, involved in his planning of that for even the last one. So she did believe in bringing people together, and I guess that for me that's the fundamental thing about family therapy. As I said to you the other day, is not what school you belong to, what modality you employ, what jargon words you throw around in order to sound impressive. It is that you have some skill in handling people in a room together who might have a history that is difficult and require tact and diplomacy, but where some good thing can happen as a result of those people simply having a venue where they can be heard, and I think at a really fundamental level, what a good family therapist does is to make it possible for everybody to be heard within a family system and or any professionals who are involved in it, although we rarely seem to extend that far out, but we should, I believe, and that was a challenge in early family therapy that has been avoided by the profession, at least until recently. What we stood for was to be able to do that, to bring those people together and to ensure that they all had a say, that they could begin to understand one another. We are just, as we speak, as you know, Daisy, we have 2 more wars, well, 3 more wars actually, but people have forgotten the other one. The one in Africa, they don't count, you see. And we have, B-2 bombers, forget it. It's just too awful. And I know it sounds grandiose and stuff, but simply it is the same principle. We do not reach good solutions because we give up on actually talking honestly to one another. We don't reach good solutions because we are scared to show our vulnerability to each other, so we just boast and bully and swagger around saying, if you don't do this, we'll do that. And it's as primitive as that. We might as well be fighting with stone axes, but it's just a lot more destructive now.
Yeah. So I guess with Maureen, this is a great reminder, isn't it, about unity? I mean, we all have the same, how can I say, the same wishes for the profession, the same wishes to unite, to be able to collaborate. That she was a great collaborator. She was all embracing. She was flexible in how she communicated. She was able to communicate in different ways, even though she may not have spoken, well, perhaps she did speak a few languages, that she was able to speak languages that are beyond the meta languages, that she was able to have that ability to communicate with all, in ensuring that we had a very connected field that was collaborative at its best, and very much embracing all.
Well, I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for Maureen's contribution, and for yours too, Hugh. Extremely grateful for having given so much to our field, to the journal, and extremely grateful. Maureen will be sadly missed, and I'm sure most importantly by you as well. I'll be extremely missed, and I'm deeply grateful that you were able to, on a Sunday morning, and while you're not well too, that you were able to join in to speak a little bit about her, to be able to pay tribute to that very important, significant member of our field in Australia. So
well, thank you.
Thank you
Thank you,
very,
Daisy.
very much, Hugh. I really appreciate it. Best wishes. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Daisy.